The Saatchi chair that has been given to the Faculty of Education is called Education and Care in Childhood. The focus of this chair is to identify risks and also protective factors that are instrumental in telling us more about the lives and experiences of orphans and vulnerable children. In the context of the study, orphans are viewed as single orphans. There are orphans who come from single parent families, or double orphans where there are no parents and possibly no caregivers as well. Now, the kind of vulnerabilities that we speak about can be really coming from a multiple factor process. The reason being that there is so much kind of vulnerabilities that are normally could be from a material perspective, a social perspective, a psychological perspective, and our children are exposed to all of these kind of different vulnerabilities. So the focus of this research then is to look at 4 dimensions of research in particular that is going to be able to give us a better picture of the children that are in question. The first level looks at the children themselves and the actual experiences of being orphans and vulnerable. And here it looks at different dimensions in terms of the psychological well-being. It looks at depression, anxiety, stress, and vulnerability levels that these children are exposed to on a daily basis. The whole idea here is to find support programs in terms of dealing with the psychological issues that children are confronted with on a daily basis in the schools and in the communities and the families. The second level looks at the families itself. We look at caregivers, we look at other adults who are able to supervise these children and look at the role that they play in terms of raising these children. As such, we begin to look at what are the experiences of children being raised in single parent families? What are the experiences of children being raised in divorced families? What are the experiences of children being raised in families where there are no adult supervision whatsoever, where children are raised by children? So basically what we're looking at here is the experiences both from a psychological and an educational and a social perspective in terms of better understanding these children so that we could look at support interventions so that these children could become our future leaders in our country. The third level looks at the schools and looks at the education department, looks at the national and the provincial education departments. It also looks at the other government sectors in terms of how we could work in a collaborative way of providing support for children. So basically what we do here is we look at the role of the school teachers in the different grades, of school management teams, school governing bodies, school-based support teams, school professionals like psychologists and nurses, social workers, and what can they do to make the situation of the orphans and vulnerable children better in our country. The fourth level looks at communities, and in the communities we actually look at the role of civic organizations, we look at the role of religious organizations, we look at the role of NGOs, and what role can they play in terms of providing support and intervention from the different aspects that I have raised. So our understanding is that looking at these 4 different levels will give us a holistic picture of the experiences of these children in terms of their lived experiences and also what we could do in terms of support and intervention. We of course realize that the task is quite great and we need to be working quite strongly with a whole lot of stakeholders in making this research a success. And we have no doubt in our mind that all of us, all the relevant stakeholders, will be committed to ensure that this research can be a great success, because the success of this research will depend on all the stakeholders. Ultimately, what we're going to see, children who, despite the circumstances, despite the adversities that they're exposed to, despite the vulnerabilities that exist in society, can arise against all odds to be resilient, to be able to survive. And obviously the last focus of our research area will be to look at resilience and to look at well-being so that we can clearly put together a picture, and also more than a picture, a clear process of interventions and support that will make certain that our children are going to be the leaders of our country.